Okay, it's vlog 27, and I wasn't gonna do a vlog this week, but then I decided to do it. I got new sunglasses. These are new frames. I just popped in new lenses. They're a little sturdier. The other one had a broken. It was starting to bend, and because I sat on it like last year or something, and so I was being very stingy, and I was like, I'm not gonna buy a new one. I'm just gonna tape it up. Haven't been feeling that well. My neck still hurts. Um, and not see it's so stiff, it's ridiculous. um Anyways, I just want to hop into it. Actually, well, no, I wanted to say, I got to speak to one of my friends last night for a couple hours. And again, I understand how like lucky I am that I'm able to do that some days where I'm able to speak for 2 hours, but I did pay for it today, obviously. And I haven't spoken to him in 14 years. We had texted a few times, but I haven't spoken to him. So I was like, I'm just going to FaceTime him. And I went to college with him for 4 years, and I went to school for film production in my undergrad. Never really did anything with it per se, but it got me thinking about something. And it got me thinking about what would filmic representation of MECF look like, and like what would the challenges be of that as well. And so I was watching that movie Coda, which is children of deaf adults, and it won Best Picture, I think, a few years ago. And I haven't seen the entire movie, but I took some interest in it because it took place in Massachusetts, and that's where I'm from. And so it's like, it's like a heartwarming film, and it's about, the guy who the father in it wins, an Academy Award for his performance, and becomes the first male uh, person who's deaf to win an Academy Award. And the first person was, of course, Marley Matlin in '87 for Children of a Lesser God, I think. And I was thinking about how difficult it would be to do a film like that for MECFS. Not only in a production sense, because I was thinking about, like, you probably couldn't have an actor or actress who had the illness play it. It'd be almost impossible. They would have to be on the extreme mild side of it, and and also too, it would have to be um, something they shot around. It would change the very nature of production itself. As I imagine Coda was, right? Because you probably have to have people on set who are experts in sign language, and being able to sort of like relay the director's information and being able to communicate. And so it's about communication. The film itself is meta commentary on film, right? It's because it's about this bridge between communicating between the audience and people who can't communicate in the quote unquote normative sense, right? Through like speaking, and they can't hear. So it's there's and film is mostly about, on some level, a large component of it is about sound. And so it's a, by using I say using, but having deaf characters as a subject is interesting for film, because um, sound is such a large component of it. It didn't used to be, right? Remember, we sound films only came into existence in 1926 or seven, I think. I can't remember the exact date, but it was around that time. And there were film critics, like, I forgot I think his name is Rudolph or Arnheim, and he was insistent that film only the most purest form of film was silent film. It couldn't, it was a sound was a bastardization of the language of cinema. And of course, we all know that's ridiculous now, but back then it was taken pretty seriously. And so I was thinking about, like, what like think about how representation is very difficult for an actual dramatic piece. Documentary is different as a sub, because any subject matter itself is the representation already. You're representing someone's world or worldview or how they live or whatever their lived experience. Um, you're investigating the nature of something, and so that's a little, I would say, quote unquote, easier. But so that's why I think most MECFS representation takes place in documentaries, because documentaries are not subject to the same strict schedules of of narrative film structure. There's a ruthless sort of efficiency sometimes to it, and like I'll give you an example. Like one of them is like the use is like daylight. You can't like people literally saying like we're losing daylight. We have to get this shot in. We have to whatever, and you can't be waiting for someone who is waiting for them to come out of a crash. Now imagine if someone who is very ill, who has MECFS, trying to play someone with MECFS, and they have a crash. Well, the production company is not going to wait 2 months or a month or even maybe a week, right? You say, well, they do it for Tom Cruise if he breaks his leg or whatever. Well, it's Tom Cruise, first of all, right? They know that film is going to make $500 million or something worldwide. It's a little different situation. They also know that he's going to come back. That's something that's important as well. With some of the MECF, there's a timetable is indefinite on how long the crash is going to last or whatever. But I was thinking about how you might film that, and I think it's very difficult. I think the story would have to be very, very unique. But it would have to ring true to people with MECFS. I think it would have to be particularly about a person who's struggling almost. I think the genre that would make the most sense is not even drama. I think it would be horror almost. That would make the most sense, right? Like something almost like demonic possession, right? Something that or poltergeist sort of phenomenon, where something is invading or taking over this person's home, and also there's it almost maybe a Hitchcockian sort of thing where the character is suffering from the claustrophobia of what's happening to them, and so that could be interesting as the space sort of is the world starts out like this for them, or the filmic space starts out like this for them, and then it becomes less and less and less and less and less and less and less negative space, and until it's just the person, because that's what's happening to their world, right? And so that's how you might film it. And so, and also too, it might start out light, and then it might progressively get darker or something. You could also fuck with film. Should be sound and how someone perceives now light, how they perceive noise. That could be something that's the character experiences. They're obviously within the story itself, their relationships, right? The doctors would be probably maybe the antagonists of the film, the people who don't believe them, etc., and so forth. It's same thing with in horror film. There's always a skeptic, right? There's always a skeptic of like, I don't believe this. Now, I don't believe in ghosts either, but I'm saying within the context of a horror film, there's always a skeptic, right? And so like the doctors would be the skeptic, right? The authorities or whomever, your families, whatever, someone would be the skeptic, right? And I think the terrifying thing about it in reality is that, usually in a horror film, you can defeat the spirit or defeat the ghost or defeat the supernatural entity or whatever, even after it's done tremendous amounts of damage. But in this, you cannot exercise it, right? And there could maybe be some corollary between that, the idea of we can't exercise, and the idea that we can't exercise these, as they would say, we can't exercise these demons. We can't relieve ourselves of them, and that is in itself terrifying. It's something that doesn't go away. So imagine that. Imagine horror, which is it's futile, and in that sense, it could be more take on the elements of the. It could take on more of the elements of the nature of hell, right? And this inescapable sort of plane of existence, which is, for lack of a better word, shit, an existence which is just torture, you know. And so that's all I really had to say. I'm just spitballing here, but I haven't come across anything that was a film. I haven't come across a way that to actually do it in a narrative sense, as opposed to just making documentaries, which is more about educating, the masses on what this illness is, and having more of a broader awareness campaign on it, as opposed to what does direct representation look like of MECFS in mainstream cinema, or even, I mean, Coda was an independent film, independent cinema, right? But mostly, like, how would you film it? How would production? What would that even look like, right? And so a lot of things have upended that previously. Like, there's a feminist way of filming cinema, believe it or not. There's a movie called a Portrait of a Lady on Fire, or Portrait of a Woman on Fire. I can't remember. And the way it was filmed was completely differently, because when they did sex scenes or nude scenes, they would get all the men out of the room, which is a different way of doing film production. They're saying only these kinds of people could be in this room because this is what makes the actors or actresses comfortable. And so that was something different, right? And so and then it required someone like a ethics person to be on set, right? And I think something similar with Coda, there had to be people who knew American Sign Language on set, and I think there'd be something similar with people with MECFS. But anyways, I'm done talking. I don't want this to be any longer than it has to be. I'm just thinking aloud. But and if you guys have any ideas, I'd be keen to hear it. I just think it'd be very difficult to make, but maybe something worth thinking about. All right, that's it. Bye.